bring the world to Singapore because you have this fantastic infrastructure, you have this really interesting history, but you also need to take Singapore art and Singapore artists out to the world, because not everybody can come to Singapore, but you can go to the world.
That's true. And speaking of going to the world, Professor Williams, tell me, now you have finished this book, Richard Burton Diaries. There is one question I think my readers like to ask you this, and that is there any particular regret that some of your chapters may have been removed because of the request of the owner or whoever that you associate with, and were there any chapters that you actually found a favorite of yours, and why?
I don't think there's a problem with the relatively small number of words that were removed. I don't think they are on any topics that are of more general interest. I think there's probably a greater regret that I have as an editor, and that is that Richard's diaries that have survived do not cover certain key phases in his life for which it would be wonderful to have a full diary. Now, one is particularly thinking of, let's say, the early 1950s, when he built his reputation as a great classical stage actor, particularly through performing Shakespeare in London and in Stratford and in Edinburgh and in Copenhagen and so on. There are no diaries for those years. We're not sure whether he kept diaries at that time or whether he did not, but that we have no diaries, that none have survived. So that's the greater regret, that there are many interesting phases in Richard's life when no diary has come through. The schoolboy diary is a fascinating document, I think, from a historian's point of view, and it would be tremendous if one had a series of those as he begins to realise, that he's got this potential to do something really significant with his life. You see, I think, in his schoolboy diary, elements of the determination and the character that would come through later on. But of course, he's actually more interested, I would say, in playing rugby than he is in drama at the age of 14, 15. So I don't think censorship here is a major issue at all. Sorry, what was the second question?
Well, the second question is that, I was about to forget, but
It's the bit of the book that really thrills you.
Which part of the book?
There's so many goodies in it.
I think actually my favourite bit is really that schoolboy diary.
Really?
Yeah, because
it's not published. Is that
it's in here.
Oh,
It's
is it?
in
Okay.
here. Yeah.
Okay.
It's in here. That's my favourite bit because it's being kept by somebody who's Richard Jenkins. He doesn't know that he's going to become Richard Burton. He doesn't know that he's going to marry Elizabeth Taylor, the most beautiful woman in the world. He doesn't know that he's going to become a millionaire. And although what he writes about in the diary is, he goes to chapel, he goes to school, he goes to the cinema, you can see the culture that formed Richard Burton between the lines of those diary entries. And it's a tremendously important, I think, to understand that he did not come from nowhere. He came from a very, very strong, rooted culture, a community culture, a culture that had confidence in itself, notwithstanding the economic problems that it had faced in the 1930s.
Now let me go back to Dr. Smith. A lot of people around the world would like to be in your position, I must say.
Really?
I mean,
being interviewed by you. They're queuing up.
They want to be the chair of the Arts of Council of Wales. I mean, it's amazing. Now, they want to know the importance of leadership. Being the chair of Arts Council of Wales, it is a very challenging position. And could you give 3 key advice for someone who is taking up positions like yours?
Okay.
Because even the one in some of them in Singapore, there's been changes from time to time. They find it challenging, and so in your own experience, could you give us 3 keys, advice, and also one defining moment that is most memorable to you when you first took this position?
Okay. Well, let me say, I'm appointed by the Minister for Heritage in Wales. So that's a key challenge because you work...
you were asked?
No, you're not asked. You're not asked. You apply. You apply. And then so there were other people who applied to do the job. Other people as foolish as me. But you're interviewed, and then I was appointed. And then I was reappointed because I was so good at it. But and then the other members of the council are also appointed. So you work within a government. We're not a government body, but we work within a government's policy. So that's the first difficult challenge. The second one is that we are there to provide services to the arts community, the artists, but also to the people, to the consumers, to the citizens. So we're not a body just there for the artists. So the minister, the artists, the people. And then I think the third challenge, and you asked me what I would say listen, 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 and then lead. And I think what we've had are people in the past, if I may say, who have been unwilling to give leadership. And what I've done is to say, okay, I've listened, we've digested this. This is what I think we should do. This is what we're going to do. And over the last 6 years, we've done a lot of big things, right? And if you don't like what I'm doing, I say to the minister, sack me, get rid of me. And if you don't like what I'm doing, I say to the people, okay, tell me, and I'll go. So far, they both said, okay, Di, carry on. But it's a series of relationships, and I do think leadership is about, you wouldn't call it leadership if you weren't talking about leaders. And I think in public life sometimes people are so afraid for their jobs, so afraid to say, oh, I might offend this one, or an important people. Well, because of my age, Robin, and my career as a writer, I'm not afraid to be sacked. I'm not afraid to stop being the chair of the Arts Council of Wales. So I want to dare to fail. I want to succeed, but I want to dare to fail. Oh. You understand me?
Oh yes, I understand you.
Okay.
Will you have done that? Professor
Would you have done it?
No, he's too young. Yeah, I've got young children already. I think we are very privileged, perhaps, in relation to academics elsewhere in the world, in that we do have a very strong tradition of academic freedom in the UK. So, by and large, one can research what one wants to research. One can write and reach judgments that are very much one's own without fear of dismissal. I think I'm lucky in that sense. I would also say, of course, that by and large, historians of Wales are not necessarily dealing with the most sensitive topics. We do not have a genocide to deal with in the past.
I must say that if I was in your position, I would not remove any of those pages. I would just proceed and publish it and have them soon.
No.
Well, I'm just kidding.
You asked me for the one moment that I've been, really, really pleased with.
Yes.
And it's because we work very hard to engage younger people and to reach out to communities that maybe, like Richard's then, but maybe not so much now, don't have opportunities for culture. And we've done some things with kids where there's an organisation called Valley Kids, which is in the Rhondda, which is for deprived youngsters. And we've reached out in this last year, and they've gone to South Africa to work with young actors in townships, very difficult circuit in Cape Town. And they created this program called Mazanzi Cymru. Cymru is Wales, and Mazanzi is the Zulu word. And it's about a love story between a young Zulu girl and a Welsh boy in the musical. And they made a musical, which has been shown in Cardiff, in the capital, and is being shown in Cape Town now, actually this week as we speak. So I couldn't go to Cape Town because I came to Singapore. All right? So
blame it to Kapal.
But it's that interchange, yes, yeah. So that makes me very proud. It's young people, it's not professionals, and their lives are changed. I know their lives are transformed by these opportunities.
So are you glad that you are a leader of one of the greatest organizations in Wales, as the chair of the Arts Council?
It's a great privilege, Robin, I continue for another 3.5 years. It's a really great privilege to be able to, I hope, have a good, beneficial impact and influence.
Now, I have one other question, that is it politically okay for a government official to hold two key appointments that's related to the same genre of the arts. Say he's a CEO of
A chief executive, yeah.
Of
Of an arts body.
of a theater,
Yeah, okay.
and also, but at the same time, he's the chair of a government agency in the arts.
It can't happen in Wales.
And why is it so?
Because there's a separation of powers. I'm the chair of the Arts Council, but we have a chief executive. He's the full-time official. And if we give money to a theatre, the Arts Council gives money to the theatre, then that person, the chief executive of the theatre, is not connected directly in any way with the Arts Council. And if at any point they sit on a board or a body, this can happen, where, we're discussing, let's say, your theatre, you leave the room. You leave the room now, and you don't come back until we make a decision without you. Mm-hmm. And we may say, okay, Robin, we'll like you very much, but we're not giving you any more money. So, no, in Wales, it's a separation.
That's good. Thank you for answering that question,
Okay.
because we have some of these issues that we saw here in Southeast Asia.
I understand.
And so I will not mention. But once again, before we end, this wonderful program, I would like to have Dr. Chris Williams, if I ask your permission, to read your favorite page
Okay.
To our audience, because I think it's I did read some of his pages and I find it really interesting. But I'd like him to read the part that he likes most.
Sure, but it's funny.
Yeah.
It's a great read. It's the kind of thing that you can read in bed. I mean, in the best possible sense. You can go to sleep with Liz Taylor.
Yeah. Well, this is, I suppose it's one of my favourite passages, not in the sense of enjoyment, but I think in the sense of what it tells us about Richard as an adult, the kind of life he was living and the problems he was facing. This is from the 20th of April 1969. And he writes, "I have been going through one of my periodic moods of depression for the last 3 days. Periods when the very thought of seeing anyone except Elizabeth gives me a real physical pain. And when I'm not drinking, which I've not been for the last 3 days, it is at its worst. Actually, during the last 12 months or so, I've become increasingly antisocial and am only really at comparative ease when fairly drunk. The fact remains I simply don't want people, including my own children whom I love, around. Time was when my chiefest enjoyment, after love-making and a good poem, was standing at a bar with a convivial few and rambling around poetry and politics and ideas of all kinds, generally second-hand, of course, and talking of every subject except the loathed one of acting. And now nothing, except to be crouched over a book in our bedroom with the air conditioning turned on to drown the noises of the outside world."
Amazing. Once again, thank you for joining us here at the National Critics' Choice, the Stienberg Review, and thank you for sharing your advice and your insights on the arts, the business of the arts, and really it's going to be a wonderful world ahead.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much, Robin.
Come to Wales.
Yeah.
And folks, please do visit Wales at any one time, and also do catch up the trail of Richard Britton and his books. And if you do get to meet the author, you never know, you might get a good signature out of him. So once again, thank you for joining me. I'm Robin Stienberg. Have a good week ahead.